everyone, and welcome to another episode right here on
DAR
and Rene. Certainly hope you guys have been having a very, productive and successful couple of days or weeks since we last saw you. And on this week, I think we have a very interesting episode which kind of reflects a lot of things that's happening right here in Singapore. Which is all about
increasing housing tax in Singapore.
Right, housing. Okay, and I think it's basically something which everybody, and I mean everybody, is interested in, from housewives to those of you getting married.
As long as you want to buy a house,
exactly,
you'll be affected.
Okay, that's
everyone,
right.
you and
Simplify it. Yes, as long as you want to buy a house, I think you're going to be interested in this topic. So let's kind of dive into a bit of details, and then I'll start asking questions with DAR. Okay, Singapore has announced a new additional buyer stamp duty, or as we call it, ABSD, on housing tax on the 28th of April this year. Okay, so what that means is basically foreigners are getting it's making more difficult for foreigners to purchase property here in Singapore. Okay, with local Singaporeans also now having to pay more taxes as well on their second and third properties. So in this video, what we're going to do is kind of talk a bit more about the taxes and how it's affecting you and also foreigners as well, and all the other stuff which comes
everyone in Singapore.
That's right, along with all other questions as well. Okay, so let's jump into our very first question for Mr. DAR. All right, so with the recent surge in Singapore property tax, which has caused a huge commotion and hot topic right here in the market, can you tell us a bit more about what all that commotion is all about?
Well, starting from 27 April year 2023, all foreigners in Singapore who want to purchase a residential property has to pay a whopping 60% ABSD.
60%?
Yeah, that's huge.
That's huge. So what was it before, basically?
Before that, it was 30%. So that's 100%.
100%
double
increase.
Yep.
So that's
and
good, right?
Yeah, and for those who want to use corporate company, entities, or even family trust, then you got to pay a 65% on every property that you purchase, and that's extra money, huge money.
That's a lot of money. So okay, when you mentioned, give you an example. Right now, I own 3 properties. So if I buy my 4th property,
you still pay 60%.
Still pay 60%.
Yeah, every property without fail, 60% on the table.
So that's quite a lot of money.
Oh, it's humongous.
Okay.
Yeah.
And now let's talk about our next question, which I think is gonna probably affect all you Singaporeans out there. What about local Singaporeans then? Are they affected as well?
Well, I guess only for the very rich Singaporeans, because for Singaporean, as long as you're buying the first and only one property, you still pay 0 tax. All right, no tax involved. But if you want to pay for the second and the third property, then you have to pay 20% and 30% tax respectively on the ABSD.
Right. So give you an example, right? For myself, I'm staying in a HDB, right? So now I want to dive into the property market and say I buy my first landed property. Okay. Am I going to pay that ABSD as well, or? Okay.
First of all, you got to sell off your HDB.
Have to sell it off?
Yep. Before you buy another landed property.
You mean I can't keep the HDB and?
No, you can't. But for example, if you are keeping the HDB and you buy a landed property, then you're going to pay a 20% ABSD on the landed property, and that's big amount.
That's news. I wasn't aware of that. Okay. Let's jump to my next question then. If buying houses is becoming more difficult in Singapore, will that cool down the current heat in property market demand? And also, what do you foresee this will affect any other sectors?
Well, of course, first of all, I think the market demand in the residential property will cool down a little bit. But then again, I foresee that a lot of fund will be moving into the rental market. Why? Because if you are not looking to buy any properties in the near future, you still have to find a place to stay. So that's why you got to rent, and I think rental market will go up. And of course, another part is the commercial property, because it has got no ABSD. So a lot of fun. If you cannot speculate, cannot invest in the residential property, that's when all the money will go into the commercial properties market. And thirdly, don't forget about REITs. That's what we mentioned last week,
we were talking about that last week as well. REITs.
Exactly. Okay, REITs is one very good instrument. Okay, as we know, Singapore REITs market is one of the largest in Asia, and by putting in small money, actually everyone co-owns a big project, whether it is a hospitality project, commercial trust, or maybe even hotels. So these are the sector, I call the REITs market, that I foresee, because it fetch a lot of steady income. So the demand will rise.
Okay, when you say steady income, you talk about in terms of interest, right?
Yield. We call that yield. Annual yield. Yes, correct. On average in Singapore, REITs are paying now about 4, 5, 6%
That's
per annum.
better than putting
not too
money
bad,
in the
not too
bank.
bad.
That's
Yeah,
really good.
you're right.
Okay, and so now I want to interject just a little bit since we're talking about this as well. So in terms of what we're seeing in this whole property market happening in Singapore, is this something happening globally as well? Anything financially that's pushing prices up in property or?
Oh yeah, definitely. Okay, now around the whole world, as we all know that interest rates are rising,
right,
around the world, in fact globally, all right. So anywhere outside Singapore, actually property prices have been slowing down since last year. So only Singapore prices are still moving up. So when Singapore government actually introduces this increment in the ABSD, it actually also helps to grow the market, and everything is softening and going to be warned for a while.
Right. Okay. So so in other words, Singapore's property is still hot, but globally it's still okay to, even if you're planning on buying something overseas.
Yeah, globally has been slowing down. So I think now Singapore should slow down for a while. Let's let the people get less fever.
Okay, got it.
Right.
Okay. Next question. The SORA rate is pretty high now. When will it be a good time to buy a house in Singapore? And also, I'm asking on behalf of all the youngsters out there, in Singapore who are planning to get married, or maybe you're planning to sell your house and buy a new one.
Well, I'm not young. I'm not getting married. Are you?
Me neither. Okay.
Okay. I think the SORA rate is now pretty high now in Singapore. Okay, and SORA actually is used to benchmark the mortgage loan rate in Singapore. So for people who want to buy a house, I think if you can and not in a hurry, wait a while. Okay, wait for second half year, as we mentioned in the over last episode. If you're gonna watch back, all right, we foresee there's a recession coming, and the property prices in Singapore probably will fall a little bit next year. So I think next year is a good time, to look for property or even to purchase your first house. And one more thing I got to add on: in Singapore, if you are purchasing a HDB for the first time, you will enjoy what we call it, a concession loan rate from the HDB. Unless if you purchase second or third property, then you'll be subjected to private bank loans.
Right. Okay. And I guess that kind of is all the time we have for on this episode, right?
I think we have a question that come from a CBD area, right?
Oh, right. Yeah. Okay. And
shoot.
Okay. This one comes from Timothy, and he just put that he stays in the CBD area, so I'm not gonna kind of dive into that. Okay, so Timothy is asking, is there any way for foreigners to avoid paying ABSD tax in Singapore?
Well, I think this is again a difficult question.
Yeah, because I'm not aware as well, man. Actually,
okay. Having said that, there is. Okay, Singapore government has signed the FTA, or we call the Free Trade Agreement, actually with 5 countries, okay? And citizens from these 5 countries, when they come to Singapore and purchase any residential property, they will enjoy exactly the same benefits like Singaporeans. Wow, so which means for the first property, they pay 0 tax as well. And do you want to know who they are?
Yeah, I was going to ask you, which countries are these?
Yes, okay, 5 countries, right? I just mentioned.
Yeah, you
mentioned
5.
First of all, let me recap. Switzerland.
Wow.
Right? US, Liechtenstein, Iceland, and Norway.
Really?
All right? Yeah, these 5 countries, very special. So if any one of you that hold the passports of these 5 countries to come to Singapore and buy the first property, you pay 0 tax. And of course, if you buy the second and third property, then again, you got to pay 20% and 30% ABSD, just as Singaporean.
Right. Okay. So all the people out there from Switzerland, US, Liechtenstein, Iceland, and Norway, if you're planning to come in Singapore to buy a house, well, now you know. You don't.
Now you know.
Now you know. Okay. Good. Okay. And I guess with that, it really kind of wraps up our episode right here on
DAR
and Rene. Okay, so if you have any questions for myself or DAR, do remember to drop us a message on either of our social media platforms.
Just give it to us.
That's right. We'll be more than happy to answer anything that you have on maybe our next episode right here. Exactly. So once again, on behalf of myself, Rene,
DAR,
we want to say goodbye, and we'll catch you on our next episode right here on
signing off.
DAR and Rene.